Hello, g'day, I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube. Thank you for joining us for our 7-day Australia-only forecast recorded on Thursday, March the 21st. We've passed the equinox now, so that means the nights are going to become longer than the days, and you'll start to notice that more and more over the weeks ahead. We're noticing in particular in the southeastern corner of Australia, this autumn-like pattern starting to come in, some colder overnight lows, and the daytime maximums, they're not very they're not very big. So that's the reason why we're not showing today the main centre temperatures, the hottest and the coldest, because there's just not much variety. And for the people last week from Brisbane who complained that I don't talk about you enough in the temperatures, it's because your temperature's flatline. You're in a warm area. There's nothing to talk about if your maximum temperature is 28 and your lowest high is 26. Barely newsworthy. So that's the reason why we don't mention the main centres. But this week, high pressure dominating the southern part of the country, low pressure up here, Ex-cyclone Megan, and the other storm that we talked about last week. They did, as I said the other day, they did the switcheroo. This one became the cyclone. This one still may well become a stormier system offshore, but it's not going to affect land, not at this stage. So let's get into the forecast. Before we do, just briefly though, talking about the high pressure zone down here, places like Ballarat in Victoria, only down to 4 degrees tonight. So it's a bit cool for you, 18 today. And similar story around parts of Tasmania, Lonnie, 5 degrees tonight. You got 21 degrees today though, so it's not all bad news. All right, let's get into Friday's forecast. So what you notice straight away, the easterly flow right across the continent, coming out of the Tasman, out of the Coral Sea, across the deserts, and exiting out the other side. So windier for Western Australia, hotter for Western Australia, cooler for eastern areas. Places like Sydney and Brisbane, temperatures are down on where they've been, especially in New South Wales and Victoria. They're nowhere near as hot as they have been. So we're seeing highs of 23s and 24s, for example. Some heavy rain still inland here for Northern Territories, obviously thanks to ex-cyclone Megan. On Friday, places like Mount Isa, 33 degrees, should be dry. Most of that wet weather pushing away from you. So Catherine, you've got the thunderstorms up there, 32 degrees for you. And Broome, excessive heat, 35 degrees. Windy for you at the moment as well. Going into the weekend, not a great deal of change. That easterly flow still there. But notice there's a bit of a change here in the southeastern side, New South Wales, Victoria, ACT. The winds get a bit more mixed up and there's a line of rain here. Now the shading you see there is about 20 to 40 millimetres. Thunderstorms, might be some hail in the mix as well. And then the eastern side, coastal areas, just your usual showers coming off the Tasman Sea. Hit and miss. Dry spells, and the further south you go, the drier it becomes, much drier down around parts of Tasmania, apart from the west coast, and also Victoria. You just might see a coastal shower. It is possible there. But here's the interesting thing. Alice Springs, only 18 degrees. You know, they were in the 40s the other day, in the mid-40s a couple of weeks ago. 18 degrees, the maximum expected in Alice Springs on Saturday, so you don't get that every day. Now into Sunday, still raining just to the north of Alice Springs. Certainly plenty of thunderstorms for the far north of Queensland and getting down into southern parts of Queensland around Charleville, and also down towards or up into the northeastern corner of New South Wales, where you've got more of those downpours. Coastal areas south of there, Sydney, for example, not looking too wet. And interesting to note that you'll see more of a southerly flow going around this big high, down around Albany and Esperance, that high encouraging a cooler airflow for Adelaide and Melbourne. Windier sou'westers coming in here for parts of Tasmania. Place of the day on Sunday, we're going to go with Victor Harbour down here to the south, or sorry, down here to the south, and that area there getting 18 degrees is the high for you. Not too much in the way of wet weather. It should be mostly dry there at Victor Harbour. On to Monday's weather. Still got this easterly flow for the top of the country. So, you know, showery weather, cloudy weather, all the way from about Port Macquarie northwards and all the way down to about Broome. That's where you're seeing those showery conditions. Elsewhere, the enormous high south of Ceduna keeping things very dry, very settled, and that's pushing further into Victoria. You probably want some rain in that area now, but you don't really have it. And at the same time that we've got the high there, there's a storm. It's hard to see it because it's well southeast of you, down in the Southern Ocean, south of New Zealand. That big storm driving in these windy westerlies. So it'll be wet on the west coast of Tasmania, windy through Bass Strait, probably getting windier into Melbourne later on as well. Now, as that high moves along, the storm in the Southern Ocean moves along at the same pace. So all that windy weather heads off to New Zealand, and you end up with much more settled weather coming back in again, except it's still wet around the western side of Tassie. You've got thunderstorms and heavy rain forming here through inland parts, obviously quite isolated, but you can see we've got some wet weather coming in through to there. And again, around Cairns and other northern areas on Tuesday, it's a bit wet. Further south, dry in this area again. So Canberra, for example, 26 degrees and sunny for you on Tuesday. And then we get into Wednesday, and again, you can see the wet weather, top half of the map. Doesn't make it over to Broome or Port Hedland or other western coastal areas. You stay dry. Cairns is the area to likely to see the heaviest downpours on Wednesday. That could still move around a wee bit. The pale blue you see just means cloud and the risk of a shower. So it may not be raining all day for these sorts of areas, but you can see a line here of maybe some heavier showers that form. Just depends on exactly how it lines up. Same story, coastal areas of New South Wales, a little wet for you on Wednesday, but we've still got that wet weather down the very bottom part of Tasmania. Hobart itself, though, still looks mostly dry. So to make sense of that for the next week ahead, the remnants of Megan up here delivering some pretty heavy rain, 300 millimetres plus in that area. From Brisbane down to about Port Macquarie, anywhere from 20 millimetres up to 40 or 50. Just depends on if you get one of those big heavy downpours or thunderstorms in your area. Got a little bit here for the western dry parts of in the outback of New South Wales. I'm sure you'll be happy with that. Victoria though, look how dry Victoria is for the next 7 days ahead, as is much of South Australia and the western, southwestern sides of Western Australia. The place to be today, well, the place of the week at least, Tamworth, New South Wales. Very pleasant, 24 to 28 degrees, still warm for you. The overnight lows, perfect for sleeping, 13 to 16 degrees for the next week ahead. And the weather conditions pretty much like what you're seeing here, partly cloudy, but mostly dry. There were a couple of showers around yesterday, I believe, but what a great spot that is, Tamworth in New South Wales. That is all from me for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the support and the donations we sometimes get on YouTube. Really do appreciate the love coming out of Aussie. We'll see you again next week.